His peers are driving sick rides, wearing designer threads, and he's busting his ass as a promotional mascot. He grinds and studies until he closes the third exam at university. On the way back, the bullies again. Their jokes are already lodged in his liver. They beat him up again. He lay face down on the asphalt and was glad that the props were intact. Otherwise, he'd be paying the company. He writhed in pain, pounding his fist on the asphalt, and then promised himself that the day would come when they'd work for him. Especially those 6 assholes who messed up his life the worst. Among them, the blonde Chanrin, the most rotten, cunning one. Time passed. He's no longer beaten or called names, but there's no prestigious job. He's a courier, running around different companies in the city. He didn't think that on the opening day of one company, he'd see all his bullies and find out that the boss of the firm where he brought the order was Chanrin. Inside, he heard familiar voices outside. They were congratulating Chanrin, joking, laughing, a regular reunion after years. Curiosity won, and he went outside to see how they were dressed, what they were talking about, and they recognized him right away. Minjun didn't expect these idiots to remember him after so many years. They got flustered and started pulling out his school nickname. Suddenly, Chanrin ran up to him, knocked off his Panama hat, made sure he wasn't mistaken. While the others stood dumbly to the side, the former blonde fidgeted, apologizing to Minjun for the past trash. For show, Chanrin shoved bills into Minjun's hands. Like, here, take a cab, broke ass. The groomed businessman called it an apology for school, as if paying off for childhood and years of pain. Minjun didn't take the money, decided to bounce from the people, the situation, and sticky memories without looking back. He ran wherever, not thinking, saw an obstacle and jumped over it without looking down. Passers-by were yelling something after him. The meaning came too late, already in flight from the roof of a 3-story building. Falling down, Minjun made a wish to return to the past and give his bullies their pain back. Opening his eyes, what the hell? He was sitting on the floor of his native classroom among familiar faces. The shock level was off the charts. The tormentors loomed nearby, looking to see if he was alive or just playing dead. The first thing that flashed through the loser's head was a dream. But the classmates' punches were too real. Logic gave an error. His brain froze. The world swam. Minjun rose from the floor, feeling a crooked reality. The thought of the wish sounded cringe and wild. He flew off like into space, not from the 3rd floor. Consciousness screamed, "Stop," when his hearing was cut by nicknames. These idiots were calling him the scrawny Chanrin. The plot broke down completely at this moment. In front of him stood himself, alive and real. The mirror gave answers, but only complicated everything. In the reflection was Chanrin, and Minjun stood to the side. The jump between bodies looked like a cursed bug, as if past curses worked crookedly. Getting into the past was already too much a fate, and waking up in the body of the main asshole was 3 times worse. The new body turned out to be perfect and bold. The former stutterer envied himself without shame. Now Minjun lived as Chanrin without limits, boxing, MMA training, and life on another level. Now he, Minjun in Chanrin's body, participated in no-rules fights and often caught himself thinking that he liked beating others brutally and regularly. After graduating from school, Chanrin debuted as a personal fighter and, without reading a single book, opened his own equipment store. Sometimes he wanted, of course, to find out where that real loser, the stutterer, was sitting out while the exchange of roles and bodies was happening and secretly watch, while Minjun sees Chanrin's reflection in the mirror. But the former reality was cracking at the seams, like the head of the one who returned to his not best moments of life full of pain and doubts. Characteristically, he received beatings himself from himself. In this new reality, a cutie and authority among morons who think might makes right got stuck in the body of a loser nerd and stutterer Minjun with an incomprehensible fear. Reveling in his new essence, the blonde organized arm-grabbing training every day intensively. The strong one showed on the weak one how this or that trick worked out for him. The breaks in the 2nd year of high school, where Minjun returned by his own wish, were long. During them, they even managed to learn the trick guillotine choke under the careful supervision of the teacher. From memory, from his past life, the blonde knew that after the guillotine choke technique, any victim would pass out neatly in 5 seconds. Being in the loser's body, it was hard for the blonde to hold back and not beat up his bullies and everyone who got in the way, but something told him that he needed to fit his new image. There, in a deep faint, there was a strange dialogue between Minjun and Chanrin. The first asked the second, "How does it feel to be in the body of a weakling and daily receive beatings from a person who wears your body and constantly laughs?" Minjun asked Chanrin, "How can you enjoy your power by beating the weak?" Chanrin began to apologize, asking Minjun to cancel his curse and return each person to his body. The blonde promised to treat all weaklings well if Minjun returned him back to his body. But, by Minjun's agreement, to cancel the curse, Chanrin needed to fulfill 2 conditions. 1, stop the events that destroyed the stutterer's life. 2, force himself to change. Minjun said that because of the bullying, he wanted to die 365 days a year. But in his memories, he singled out exactly 4 events that Chanrin must remember. This mess of thoughts, conditions, and unpleasant memories happened to both at the same time, and each of them did not get confused in their feelings. The blonde, of course, was itching to get back into his body, but he couldn't remember those 4 events out of 1 trillion events they arranged for this scrawny guy. Finding no other way out, the blonde decided to use his physical strength and, even being in the stutterer's body, beat up his bullies. But in response to this, he heard from Minjun that you can't change the course of events, otherwise those 4 events won't happen, which he, the blonde, must remember. If beating himself and his friends so they'd back off wasn't the way, then what was the second condition? Chanrin thought. To which Minjun replied that the second is simpler than the first, to force the blonde to become human, to change for the better. But how can such a loser, which he became, influence an authority figure, which he was? The second condition is definitely simpler than the first. Coming to after the guillotine suffocation, Chanrin pondered his task, to force his past self to change. Unnoticed by himself, Chanrin began to think out loud, which attracted the attention of classmates. The desk neighbor touched his shoulder, and putting a finger to his lips, called for silence. At this moment, Chanrin noticed a padlock hanging on his glasses. The desk neighbor said that the blonde put it on and said he'd remove it if they guessed his birth date. Chanrin entered the right number and removed the lock from his neighbor. Then Chanrin and his neighbor saw that the blonde was sleeping at the back desk, threatening everyone not to make noise in the classroom while he slept. The teacher entered the class. Chanrin caught himself thinking that he hadn't seen this dude in a long time. The dude ordered to wake up the one sleeping at the back desk. All the students turned their heads back at once, wanting to see how this weakling, loser, stutterer would dare to wake up the school's terror. Chanrin? Agree, it's not often that life gives you the opportunity to wake yourself up. But damn, to slap a bully, that happens even less often. It's a sin not to take advantage. The slap was loud. Everyone present didn't expect such decisiveness from Minjun, but the asshole Chanrin woke up quickly. He looked at the suddenly emboldened stutterer with threatening bewilderment, but, to the great surprise of everyone present, did nothing in response. Shulgi, the desk neighbor, and with him 30 more students, froze in fear and surprise. What would happen now? But the formidable Chanrin did not react in his usual way. On top of everything, the teacher called none other than the blonde Chanrin to the board. What happened next? No one expected. Instead of the blonde hottie, the nerd stutterer came to the board and called himself Chanrin. This teacher had a peculiarity that everyone knew about. For the slightest violation in class, he allowed himself to hit students with a pointer. The whole class laughed, watching how the nerd was serving his punishment. Most of all, what was happening pleased the arrogant blonde. He laughed loudly. During the break, of course, what the whole class expected happened. The blonde kicked the nerd, remembering that he couldn't drastically change events, otherwise he wouldn't return to his body. Pulling out a long hair from one classmate's head, the blonde tied the loser's and his desk neighbor's hands with it. Standing on his knees before himself, Chanrin in Minjun's body was amazed at his own sophisticated low acts, which he had already forgotten since then. The blonde ordered them to stand like that until the end of the day, but after a few minutes, the situation got out of control. Seolgi suddenly wanted to go to the bathroom. On the way to the bathroom, Chanrin, in the nerd's body, cursed himself for the situation. Plus, the hair with which their hands were tied also broke. The stutterer suddenly couldn't take it, which wasn't his style. Plan B was urgently needed. Or rather, yesterday. Who do you think saved the situation? Exactly, Seolgi. He handed the suddenly snapping loser a whole bag of long black women's hair. A sudden kick to the jaw disrupted Plan B to replace the hair on the wrist. Chanji felt his own Brazilian kick technique for the first time, which his own homie delivered to him. By this time, the blonde had caught up. He got into stance and decided to add to his bully, who was sitting in his former body. Chanrin remembered that the dude standing opposite couldn't be hit hard, otherwise there would be a glitch in events. But despite this, he also got into stance. A moment later, the nerd received a powerful blow to the solar plexus. His breath caught, his eyes darkened, blood spurted from his mouth. Writhing in pain on the locker room floor, Chanrin in Minjun's body wanted to kill the blonde for the Dempsey technique used on him. But he had no right, because his bully was him in the past. While Chanrin pondered what to do to get back into his body, the blonde's lackey, that is him in the past, pushed him face first into the urinal. He didn't expect this even from himself. It's so unpleasant, humiliating, and undeserved at that. What did this stutterer do to them? Locking the entrance door, Chanrin in Minjun's body remembered that manners make the man. But right now, it's time to forget about them. Well, look at that. Just one skillful trip and this blockhead falls on the floor like a sack of potatoes, the nerd thought. Without letting the big guy come to his senses, the stutterer dodged the fist flying at his face and delivered a counterblow to the stomach. Delivering blow after blow to the liver, back and kidneys, Chanrin got so carried away re-educating his former homie, forgetting that he was now in a weakling's body. Standing over the victim of his rage, Chanrin understood that, without restraining himself, he had indeed changed the course of history. When the lackey came to, Chanrin stated that from today, he wanted to receive information about everything that happened with the blonde, otherwise he'd tell everyone how the nerd beat up the big guy. The big guy listened to the deal and couldn't understand how it happened that some loser stutterer was ordering him around. Returning to class, Chanrin thought like this: the course of events won't break, because Simkin will be afraid of classmates' ridicule, so he'll keep quiet about today's beatings in the bathroom. Having stretched his body, Chanrin, for the first time, being in the loser's body, felt like a human being and was glad that he found himself a punching bag in the person of Simkin. Along with the transfer into the loser's body, Chanrin was also given the responsibilities of the shell's owner. Minjun bought cigarettes and treated everyone with them behind the school. It was strange to meet himself in the past there, arm in arm with the most beautiful girl in school. Watching himself from the side, Chanrin was amazed at his rudeness towards the one who loved him. Suddenly, Bonnie, that's what the blonde's girl was called, dragged the loser by the hair, deciding that he was making eyes at her, and asked Simkin to teach the impudent one a lesson. To fit the image, Simkin lightly squeezed Mindun's neck with his elbow and dragged him aside. Despite the lively discussion with the girls, Bonnie became interested in why Simkin didn't beat the nerd on the spot. She followed the guys. An awkward moment came. The girl saw that the weakling was holding the big guy by the scruff. It was hard to wrap her head around. Chanrin saved the situation as best he could, ordering the girl to fuck off and keep quiet about what she saw so that the course of events wouldn't break. A few days later, Chanrin deliberately provoked Bonnie by pushing her, calling her a dumb chick. But despite this, she didn't tell anyone about what she saw. Now, at every meeting with the stutterer, she was afraid, embarrassed, blushed, behaved unusually. Could she really have fallen in love with this loser? Chanrin, finding himself in Minjun's body, decided not to go to the bathroom during breaks anymore. There he was, consistently pressured, and there was no more strength to endure it. He started going there during lessons and only to the teacher's restroom. This seemed like the only safe place where he could catch his breath. Once in the stall, he ran into Teacher Seagrim and suddenly snapped. Anger broke through. Everything got out of control and fear and tension hung in the air. The fight became inevitable. The blonde applied his signature chokehold without hesitation. The teacher crashed face first on the floor, and Chanrin felt a strange relief and rage. Waking up in front of students and colleagues, Seagrim broke down. Tears flowed on their own. Shame burned stronger than pain, and he dreamed of disappearing, forever leaving this behind. That same day behind the school, Chanrin tried to smooth over the consequences, to talk calmly. He assured that the incident would be erased if they just waited it out and didn't blow it up. After a difficult conversation, they decided to stick together, to become strange allies. Support instead of enmity seemed like a way out, albeit shaky, but better than loneliness. However, the thought of the causeless choking surfaced again. Irritation was thrown in his face. Chanrin realized that payback for old bullying was still ahead, and it was close. Another fainting spell covered him suddenly, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Minjun, whose face was alien, coldly recorded all the opponent's failures. On the way from school, a simple and evil idea came to Chanjin to strengthen the body, sign up for a gym, and keep an eye on the nerd temporarily living in his shell. It was here, in the stuffy gym for training, that Chanrin encountered those bastards who would later methodically break Minjun with pain, asking no unnecessary questions cruelly. He watched as new homies chased Seolgi with force without mercy, and any pity, and inside, something clicked sharply and unfamiliarly internally, like a bright flash. On the outside, a nobody and a scrawny guy, but inside, a complete crazy idiot, without breaks at all. But Chanrin suddenly didn't allow them to keep bullying the guy, defending him himself, not understanding exactly why. Here, no one understood normal actions and adequate explanations of truth, really, and the fist became the only argument that flew right into Chanjin's face. After a brutal beating, Shulga somehow exhaled and mumbled gratitude with hope quietly, and Chanrin for the first time received a simple human thank you sincerely from a nerd without lies. Then he pretended to be an ordinary scrawny guy, didn't show off, and didn't get into the action carefully. His goal was quiet surveillance of the blonde, a reflection of himself in the deep past inside. Later, there was a meeting he wasn't ready for and didn't expect. Fatefully, unexpectedly, the girl herself approached him, the same one who had been interested for a long time and quietly came around. Bonnie was damn cute even when she teased the loser lightly and playfully, in whose body Chanrin was stuck, and it seemed almost harmlessly innocent completely. Behind their calm chat, Minjun kept his eye on them warily and attentively, stuck in the blonde hottie's body, and the air slowly tensed, heated up obviously. Suddenly, one of the jocks approached the stutterer and asked him to hold the Makiwara friendly straight. The scrawny guy agreed without even guessing what this would turn into dangerously for him. And then, everything went according to the old scheme, a powerful kick to the stutterer's head. His eyes swam, his body swayed, but he held on, gritting his teeth in pain. On the tatami, he collapsed later when the one standing behind kicked him under the knee. A dry crunch of pain pierced his joint. The gym met it with a dull hum of surprise. Bonnie approached the newcomer scrawny guy, trying to console him, and almost succeeded. She smoothed over the edges, said that's how it's done with new ones, without evil intent. Behind their quiet conversations, Minjun in the blonde's body watched without blinking. His fists clenched on their own. Anger boiled, demanding an outlet right here and now. Chanrin peered at Bonnie, not understanding the sharp change in her attitude. In the loser's body, he was cute to her, and the blonde for her was like empty space in general. Minjun snapped, without thinking, punching the bodybuilder in the solar plexus. He told him to pass the blow to the newcomer, as if arranging dirty delivery in one go. The mail worked clearly. The package arrived in a couple of minutes without any glitches. Chanrin was covered with pain again, but inside, a cold, attentive attention grew. He realized the blonde didn't recognize him. The pink mask mixed up all the cards of the game. This played into his hands, allowing him to play the game according to the desired scenario calmly. Putting at stake the past, future, and himself, he stepped forward. The loser challenged the blonde to the ring, catching the gazes of the gym and the strict trainer. The hottie hit in series, planning to quickly close the question before the noise, but the stutterer dodged the jabs cleanly, reading the rhythm and saving the moment inside himself. His opponent was a master of close combat, confident, fast, and without unnecessary fuss. The rookie in the pink mask quietly came from behind, breaking the whole familiar tempo of the fight. With one sharp movement, he twisted the blonde, exposing the school authority like a doll. The gym buzzed, the grip weakened, and the truth finally began to reach everyone's consciousness. He understood why he couldn't break the scrawny guy before. The body obeyed an alien will. Chanrin and Minjun switched places, past and present locked together tight. The blonde rushed to save his reputation, rushing into attack without pause and plan. He knocked the newcomer on his shoulder blades, hoping to press with mass and the anger of the crowd around. The full gym froze. The spectators held their breath, feeling the smell of the denouement. The fight wasn't for points, but for survival. Every moment cut nerves to the limit. After a minute, the roles switched again. The advantage went to the pink mask sharply. The loser closed a suffocating triangle, adding cold humiliation without emotions. He didn't forget the bully's favorite technique, returning it precisely and without unnecessary movements. Causeless suffocation became a lesson. The past squeezed the throat without mercy. When it became critical, the blonde stubbornly didn't give up, ignoring all the limits of pain. But the body betrayed, the tatami accepted the signal, and defeat became a fact harshly. A whisper rolled through the crowd. Disbelief cut the ears stronger than any blow. How could Jock Chanrin fall from a scrawny guy, destroying the usual myth about his strength? Losing in front of Bonnie became hell, the worst scenario of all possible. The newcomer felt sorry for his past self, but for re-education, everything worked out perfectly. The next day at school, the blonde again picked a fight with the loser. He got on his nerves for no reason, not remembering that yesterday he lost in the ring. A little later, Simkin, his personal lackey, came under the hottie's arm. The blonde, without thinking, charged a punch to the stomach, showing everyone who's boss. The first conflict flared up at the stutterer's and Seolgi's desk. The blonde ordered them to fight one-on-one, and the class immediately came alive, making bets. The reward for victory was freedom from bullying forever. While the loser refused to hit his friend, Seolgi first hit him in the jaw. The betrayal burned the stutterer. He snapped and attacked his neighbor. He beat furiously and blindly, and the outcome was clear. The blonde recognized his victory. Only after the fight did the stutterer realize that Seolgi hardly resisted. The friend cried, and shame covered him completely. Guilt choked him fully. Seolgi turned out to be soft, and later entrusted the stutterer with a secret. He showed a notebook with novellas, where his fragile inner world was hidden. To support his friend in show class, the stutterer read an excerpt in class. Didn't name the author, sincerely believing in the power of the text and emotions. Few understood the art, and the blonde with the lackey's raised laughter. They trampled Seolgi's delicate soul with their evil cackling and mockery. After that, Seolgi disappeared from school. Adults got involved. The teacher asked to name those who bullied, breaking the painful silence. All students pointed not at the blonde, but at the stutterer. What was remembered wasn't how the guys were friends, but how the loser beat up the writer. Listening to the conversation with the real Minjun, Chanrin understood one thing. For the body swap to succeed, the first incident needed to be stopped. To prevent the blow, the scrawny loser still beat up Seolgi. He became the winner, but convinced his neighbor to ignore the bullying. The stutterer was afraid to break the course of history. He stopped defending his neighbor even when he was forced to eat from the floor or pose. Seolgi surprised everyone with his resilience. For the sake of friendship with the stutterer, he endured shame, fulfilled all the lackey's orders, and continued to smile. Chanrin in Minjun's body walked his friend home. Once he heard Seolgi crying and talking about suicide. Only someone third, strong and secret could save the situation. The stutterer realized that it was possible to fix everything really only himself. Sometimes the weakling put on a pink balaclava and came to Seolgi. The fat guy liked the new mysterious friend, Mr. X. Mr. X tried to motivate Seolgi to do sports, but the past and school tormentors held him under influence for a long time. Chanrin's task, stuck in the stutterer's body, was clear: return to his body, and for this, be Mr. X, train the fat guy, and teach him to fight. Seolgi waited a long time for the right moment to show what he was capable of. While he wasn't there, the stutterer arranged so that classmates read the fat guy's novella. The moment of reckoning came in the bathroom. Seolgi caught the blonde from the lackeys. He locked the door from the outside and prepared for the long-awaited retribution. His heart pounded. He was no longer the former good guy who endured bullying and nicknames. Now his eyes burned with determination. Rage squeezed his fists, preparing to strike. Gathering all his strength, Seolgi started beating up the bully, remembering Mr. X's advice. The training paid off. For the first time, he believed in his own power and determination. The blonde suddenly came out of the stall, seeing furious rage. He asked to soften the actions, pointing to the border between teaching and pain. The fat guy's re-education got out of control. The reasons remained a mystery, but the consequences quickly spread among schoolchildren. Rumors flew like wildfire. A few days later, life seemed to return to normal. Seolgi sat with a lock on the bridge of his glasses, and the stutterer was getting beatings again. Chanrin understood that the first incident was complete, but he watched Bonnie. She knew about Minjun's pretense and could destroy the relative peace. Today, Bonnie found herself in a difficult situation because of a conflict at home. She spent the evening with guys from the gym, looking for at least some salvation. In conversation, she honestly shared the problem. She had nowhere to spend the night. The guys offered to rent an apartment together, to spend the night there together, and help each other. Having figured out the guy's dirty intentions, the girl hurried to leave, dissolving into dark alleys. The cold penetrated to the bones, and eyes tried to track her every step as she walked quickly. At one of the stops stood the blonde, watching Bonnie along the empty street. Behind followed a group of guys, clearly decided to have fun at her expense, without a shadow of doubt. The girl froze on the steps of the supermarket, thinking whether it was worth going home. She almost believed in the guys' help, but her gut told her, don't trust them. Everything went smoothly until Minjun and Chanrin's body figured out their true motives. He, for the sake of justice, arranged a short conversation, and the guys, surprised, retreated. The blonde was interested in what happened and where she was going. The girl briefly told about the quarrel with her parents, and he offered shelter without extra words. Standing apart, the blonde in Minjun's body watched Bonnie and remembered his past. Once he himself invited her to his place, but between them then, there was neither relationship nor feelings. In Minjun's body, Chanrin came to his parents' house every day after school. Warm relations with parents seemed strange, but joyful, which always surprised him. Behaving like a loser was easy for the blonde. He even stuttered for credibility. But Bonnie's appearance in the room immediately made him alert. Everything became different. Seclusion from parents' questions was only in the bathroom, where he could think. He remembered the day's events, analyzed what was happening, trying to understand what was most important. He realized that Chanrin punished the guys for harassing Bonnie, and she fell in love. But the feelings remained unrequited. The blonde was then only interested in sports and personal matters. Chanrin sat in Minjun's body and barely restrained himself. Thoughts jumped between desire and fear. He was shaking inside. Mom flew in without knocking, hearing the noise. She saw Minjun and asked calmly if he had heard a woman's voice in the room. Minjun lied that he was watching porn, without blushing. Mom just nodded and said not to stay up too late, returned to her business. When they were alone, Bonnie asked if she could take a shower. Chanrin nodded, but warned that the parents should be asleep by that time. After the shower, Bonnie lay on the edge of the bed. Chanrin sat nearby, tension grew, and a mosquito diligently interfered with sleeping on the girl's thigh. Without thinking, Chanrin slapped the insect. Bonnie sharply opened her eyes but didn't scream. In the dark, they shone like lights. In the dark, they whispered about nonsense for a long time. Chanrin finally asked why she came to him instead of the blonde. There was no answer. In the middle of the night, Bonnie's phone rang. The sound of an SMS broke the silence. Chanrin, without blinking, read messages from her ex-boyfriend. He scheduled a meeting in the park in an hour, wrote easily and confidently. The girl slept, suspecting nothing about Chanrin's night plans. Chanrin couldn't go as Minjun. He put on a pink balaclava, got on an electric scooter, and went as Mr. X on a night adventure to the park. If only Chanrin didn't forget what body he was in now, everything would be easier. Bonnie's ex was waiting for her with 4 more morons, and this clearly promised trouble. Only the blonde bully, in Minjun's body, could so boldly strike first. The guy who looked like a 3-door wardrobe didn't even have time to understand what was happening. After the blow, everything went to hell, but then, suddenly, Seolgi appeared. With his arrival, the situation sharply changed, and the tension didn't subside right away. Mr. X suddenly remembered all the techniques from the gym when he was Chanrin. These skills came in handy right in the fight, and he acted like lightning and accurately. Funny, but a scrawny guy with a fat guy managed to defeat the street terror and 5 thugs. Everyone around just freaked out at the result. No one expected such an outcome. The next day, the stutterer managed to persuade Bonnie not to run away from home anymore. The weakling also said that the ex now wouldn't harass anymore. It was easier. While Chanrin was in Minjun's body, he decided to train the weak one, without wasting time. He worked on strikes, reaction, and speed to prepare him for real problems. Minjun in the blonde's body talked with Bonnie's ex and learned about the night scuffle. Events with Mr. X and the pink balaclava became a complete surprise for him. The blonde had his own people to whom he gave out small tasks, like Sangun. He was instructed to find Mr. X and find out all the details of what happened without wasting time. The second incident with the return to their bodies began on the school trip. Minjun met Yerin, and she literally charmed the weak one, changing the atmosphere. She didn't lag behind Minjun. They laughed all day together, took pictures, ate ice cream, and he dreamed of leaving her for the future, betraying her like Seolgi. It was then that Minjun first noticed Sangun. He swiftly slipped a courage card into the weakling's pocket, and the world around seemed to change instantly. Yerin didn't lag behind. On the contrary, she reached for Minjun, took his hand, laughed, showed signs of attention, got closer first, cleverly kept the pace. For the second incident to begin and be prevented, the blonde in Minjun's body had to remember the trip and hit on that girl. During the trip, Minjun ran into Bonnie, Sangun and Bonnie met. Later, they tied their lives, and chance meetings wove into a chain of events. Relations with Yerin went downhill when she saw Minjun push Bonnie, and something in that trip seemed suspicious and unfair to her. Minjun spun memories in his head, how Sangun gave him the card, then guys from another school got on Seolgi, and he had to stand up for his friend without thinking. So that the course of events wouldn't change, the blonde in Minjun's body had to pretend to be inactive and swallow blows from the dude from the neighboring school silently. This merciless fight was noticed by Yerin. At that time serving in the police, her gaze caught every movement, her heart either accelerated or froze. And the blonde's body, at this time, didn't tire of fighting with everyone around, as if patience itself ran out, and the world around turned into solid adrenaline. Sangun didn't let up, rummaged through school corridors, seeking out the person in the pink balaclava, tried to find out details from Bonnie, but she wilted and retreated. Yerin returned from the trip and took patronage over Minjun, watched every step, and the weakling really didn't like such attention. During tag from Minjun's pocket fell out the courage card, Seolgi picked it up, watching what was happening and smiling quietly. Minjun and Yerin's relationship was like a one-way stream. He's in love, she strictly protects him, no romance, only rules and constant control. Sangun stood out among all school children. His movements were sharp and confident. He also began to look after Minjun, feeling responsibility and excitement at the same time. The two of them managed to keep the weakling under observation around the clock. Sangun always found a reason to give a lesson, to needle and keep him in shape, not sparing the guys. Once Sangun asked to close the door in the classroom, Minjun forgot, returned, and immediately received a series of precise blows to the jaw, trying not to give away weakness. Minjun endured, held back emotions, was glad that Yerin didn't see how vulnerable he turned out to be, trying not to break the course of events and not upset the order. Suddenly, a police whistle whistled. Yerin flew in. Minjun could no longer control his feelings. Tears flowed on their own. He remembered the incident down to the smallest details. Yerin grabbed Sangun by the hand, resolutely dragging him to the teacher's room for the sake of justice and order, feeling how tension hung in the air and caught everyone. Sangun, who had previously defended the stutterer, suddenly lost patience, slapped Yerin. Blood flowed. She crashed to the floor, eyes closed from pain. The new tormentor ordered Minjun to remove the traces, wipe the blood. He swallowed tears, fulfilling every requirement without a single word, his heart squeezed with fear. After that day, Yerin lost her hearing, now wore devices. The dream of the police academy collapsed. She burned notes and photos, only emptiness remained inside. Minjun became even weaker, closed off, didn't make contact, lost love, Days seemed endless, cold filled his heart, hope faded gradually. Internal dialogues with Chanrin reminded of hope. They decided to prevent a repeat of the incident, return to their bodies and fix fate, preparing for a new test. Returning to the second day gave Minjun knowledge of the course of events. Sangun's request to close the door was fulfilled. The incident seemed exhausted. Silence hung tensely. Minjun endured blows from the handsome blonde, hoping to correct the course of history, but Seulgi returned from the bathroom, forgot to close the door. The situation changed. Anxiety rose sharply. Seulgi, formerly a weakling, gained courage. Finding Minjun's fallen card, was ready to intervene and change the tragic outcome. Tension grew with every second around. The incident repeated like a template, but Seulgi stopped Sangun's hand in time. The slap to Yerin didn't happen. The air was filled with relief and anxiety. Hearts beat faster. Minjun understood the consequences for Seulgi, took Yerin to the backyard, and he himself rushed to help the brave friend. Steps echoed with determination and fear. Readiness to save didn't fade. Minjun entered the classroom, calmly watched how Sangun was beating up the fat Seulgi, didn't even try to intervene, slowly and attentively. Having counted to 30 blows to the face, Minjun still threw himself at Sangun, released a series of blows, one after another, without stopping, decisively and sharply. In the weakling's body, it's hard to apply Chanrin's old techniques, but the throw over himself, having exhausted the second incident, succeeded for the blonde without extra effort. Yerin entered the class, sanctions for the fight immediately flew. Chanrin wasn't interested. The main thing was, the second incident was completed completely and quietly. Minjun joyfully hugged Seulgi. Classmates joked. Chanrin regretted that he wasn't in a strong body. Otherwise, he would have shown them who's who right away. Seulgi couldn't calm down. Became Yerin's secret angel. Watched so that no one offended her. Participated in her life daily and carefully. Meanwhile, the blonde and Sangun became close friends, together looking for the person in the pink balaclava who laid out Bonnie's ex-boyfriend on the spot. In the weakling's body and home, Chanrin got used to the family routine, where the father came into the bathroom without knocking and invited his son to breakfast on time and strictly. Minjun was in a good mood, not understanding his parents' plans, until he saw that instead of a cafe, they came to a hospital, met a doctor seriously. The parents brought Chanrin in Minjun's body for surgery, but the meeting with Minjun in his body looked extremely strange and threw everyone off strongly. To conduct such an uncomplicated operation successfully, the doctor tried with all his might. Bloody traces on the coat betrayed tension and fatigue, noticeable to everyone in the room. In search of Mr. X, he rushed through the corridors. Training became more complicated daily, to worthily endure a fight with a person in a pink balaclava, ready for any surprises. Once he met a girl, the conversation started by chance. She confessed that she works as a urologist in the city hospital. Chanrin began to visit often, finding this a pleasant reason. A weakling at heart, couldn't confess his love, explained visits by the desire to get circumcision, like an excuse for frequent meetings, hiding fear and shyness behind a smile. 2 patients with the same operation were placed in one ward. There they learned about the third incident, which they were obliged to change with their own forces, having no right to delay. Canceling the operation was impossible. Minjun and Chanrin were experiencing shock, shame, fear, and a little pain, each gritting their teeth, as if preparing for inevitable reprisal, trying to hold on bravely. Leaving the hospital, they seemed weak, legs spread apart, gait clumsy, but internally each felt a strange power, ready to flare up if necessary and protect themselves instantly. Each went his own way. Homes were far from each other, but the pain and tension didn't let go. The memory of the ward kept both in constant internal tension. On the way home, the blonde writhed in pain. It seemed he was about to collapse when a company of thugs came out to meet him, decided to find out who's boss here and who's really stronger. They didn't know about the pain between his legs. The mistake cost dearly. A beast capable of tearing them apart with bare hands broke out of Minjun at that moment. Fear and anger intertwined instantly. The pain turned out to be stronger than the desire to hit everyone. Mr. X couldn't throw the body to be torn apart and rushed to save it with all possible forces. In Chanrin's hand-to-hand combat, the first blow left his dick in a pitiful state. The stitches came apart. A repeat operation became necessary for recovery. Minjun and Chanrin's body didn't know these details, so as not to aggravate the situation, he decided to slip away from the fight scene quietly and without extra noise. Today, Changrin was weak like never before, couldn't let Minjun go, needed at least one striking fist for defense of 2 at once. They got into stance and began to defend themselves. Each blow merged with the other's instincts, as if one whole was forming right before their eyes. In a split second, Minjun and Chanrin's body caught a kick in the groin of Mr. X. He didn't have time to react due to fatigue and strong weakness. At this stage, Chanjin's body, visible to those around, began to change for the better. Two more critical incidents remained to prevent. Curiosity tried to pull the blonde, but the opportunity to find out whose mug was behind the pink balaclava, he completely and decisively ignored. Either out of respect for the savior, or out of joy that it worked out, the hottie left, leaving the weakling unconscious on an empty, quiet street. Minjun in Chanrin's body felt an unusual unity, as if two different people became one whole, and the power of their coherence became noticeably powerful. Despite the fact that the acute pain was gone, walking caused discomfort for the blonde. He walked with his legs apart. Classmates didn't understand this. Meanwhile, Sangun shared guesses about Mr. X, claimed that the stutterer Minjun and the guy in the pink balaclava were one person. Intrigue grew more and more. Noticing Shulgi's strange behavior, Minjun worried, tried to find out the fat guy's problems, but he was silent. Then he asked Bonnie directly. Bonnie revealed that she had been in love with Minjun for a long time, but the stutterer was busy, tried to prevent incidents. He made sure that Shulgi was always okay. Shulgi couldn't stand the pressure and transferred to another school. Since then, Minjun followed him on all social networks, finding posts about the upcoming fight regularly. The blonde in Minjun's body couldn't allow glitches. The next day, he went to the metro station, where a fight between teams was supposed to take place quite precisely. After last year's incident, Shulgi and Minjun's friendship broke off. The stutterer couldn't just approach, he watched from the side, hiding in the crowd unnoticed. The battle started. Shulgi held up well, but the opponent turned out to be stronger. Won the first part of the contest, tension increased with every minute quickly. The second part included the speed of assembling plastic figures, a team task, but Shulgi came alone. Victory slipped away, despite his efforts strongly. After Real Festival, no one saw Shulgi anymore, neither on social networks nor in real life, leaving a trace only in Minjun's memory forever. The mystery was closed. Minjun burst into Real Festival, making his way through the dense crowd, eyes seeking out Shulgi, who has always slipped away from him in the crowd. Shulgi didn't let him take a place in the competition. He had to stand among the fans, feeling the tension of every important moment of the event. Minjun remembered the past unpleasant incident. Team spirit was important, so he bought clothes for Bonnie so she would support Shulgi actively. After long persuasion, Bonnie agreed to be a cheerleader. Her performance effectively tore up the audience. All eyes were riveted to her completely. Shulgi got on stage, full of determination and excitement, but fate played against him, and the first fight he lost again, despite his mood. During the break, Yerin came on stage. Her presence added strength and confidence. The effect was no less than Bonnie's at the show. The determination card in Minjun's hands gave faith that he was capable of changing the outcome of the battle and not allowing Shulgi's defeat this time. But the plan again failed. The fat ass gave up ahead of time. Panic in Shulgi's eyes was obvious. The team was losing rhythm instantly. The second team of nerd losers also began to retreat. The situation was heating up. They urgently needed to get themselves together, mobilizing forces. Minjun gritted his teeth, focused completely, put panic to a minimum, pulling everyone out of shit, keeping the team and himself in full readiness. Cheat code activated, Mr. X's exit to the stage, pink balaclava rules. Minjun did it for the sake of Shulgi's return to the game, as if the game was starting anew. Plan B moved according to its own laws, pink balaclava on stage. And who do you think volunteered to compete? Sangun, challenging everyone at once. Sangun set conditions. Mr. X agreed to play on behalf of Shulgi, Minjun, and Chanrin, depended on the game, but the mask would have to be removed at any outcome. Mr. X was confident in a fight. He knew how to fight, but now the round required a card game, the rules of which Chanrin didn't know and understood with difficulty. Minjun's body remembered the movements, intuition and memories suggested moves. He remembered the saying about love and luck in cards, smiling to himself slightly. Minjun began to play, guided by sensations. Hands moved on their own, cards fell precisely, and victory came unexpectedly, as if fate itself decided to help. Trying to leave the competition so as not to remove the mask, he ran into Bonnie. She looked directly and asked who he was and why the mask, with obvious curiosity. Minjun wasn't going to answer the question about his identity, but the lie about the reason for the mask came on its own. "Because I like you," slightly blushing from surprise. Sangun accidentally heard the confession, but remained silent, watching the scene and tension around, not interfering in the moment, as if playing the role of an outside witness. Mr. X, not losing a second, hurried to leave Real Festival, leaving Minjun, Shulgu, and Sangun in a whirlwind of events and emotions that wouldn't subside for a long time. But while looking for an exit, again ran into an incident between Yerin and Sangun. This time, didn't rely on chance, himself decisively stopped the moron's hand, thereby gradually releasing his leader essence outward. And what especially turned on Chanrin in Minjun's body was that Sangun considered himself above him. Minjun hinted as he could about the fact that he's not who he looks like. Before the duel, he took off his pants and remained in boxing shorts. That's what Chanrin always did decisively. Sangun was surprised by the trick, but didn't understand what the joke was, why the weakling stutterer was showing off his underwear to him. Fists flew towards each other swiftly. Two opponents applied all the techniques they possessed on each other. Richie's blow, knocking down, releasing blow after blow in Sangun's face mercilessly. The control one between the eyes turned out to be final. Then, after the fight, Minjun still didn't remove the mask, but managed to warn Sangun not to follow him any more decisively. Otherwise, he would be disgraced in front of the whole school. The next day, in a conversation with the blonde Sangun, stated that he refused to look for the owner of the pink balaclava clearly. The blonde wondered why, but Sangun didn't dare admit that he recognized the scrawny Minjun under the balaclava and that he beat him up so unexpectedly. Chanrin was already specifically sick of this dying body of Minjun. He wanted to fix all the incidents as soon as possible and finally return to his own native body. But it remained unknown how much longer to wait until a chance appears, and it will be possible to regain control before new problems suddenly arise. His boredom was instantly dispelled by the teacher who burst into the class, warning that the exam was coming soon and it was time to improve knowledge, otherwise trouble could overtake us all. Chanrin never studied, didn't read a single book, except for the washing machine manual, but studying became a reason for Bonnie's offer to go to the library together. High school students used the library as a dating place. Girls wore their best outfits, trying to attract attention not only of classmates. Guys from the neighboring school constantly evaluate girls, watching them from afar, and the whole atmosphere was filled with quiet excitement and hidden tension. Bonnie regularly looked into the library, waiting for the guy to arrive, nervously fixing her hair, following every step, as if guarding the long-awaited moment of meeting. Bonnie, pretending to study diligently, once made a remark to students who were too openly lost in front of everyone, clearly violating the rules. Sometimes, she herself got into awkward situations with a persistent guy who excessively showed attention, making her heart beat faster and more often. Each time she managed to regain control, set boundaries, softly but firmly, and at the same time keep face in front of others, without losing self-respect. And finally, he, the one she likes, wrote that he was going to the reading room, and Bonnie's heart beat faster, anticipating a meeting full of hidden excitement. Bonnie, not hiding her joy, ran to meet him and saw what she absolutely didn't expect, which greatly alarmed her and made her heart freeze in her chest. Minjun came to the library not alone, but with Yerin. They laughed, were happy. No one could predict their cheerful mood. Not knowing the reason for her tears, Minjun in a friendly, caring way wiped her face in front of everyone, causing quiet curiosity. Everyone who saw Bonnie waiting was terribly interested in who the blonde's ex-girlfriend was waiting for so much, anticipating a surprising twist. When Minjun and Yerin were fooling around at their seats, Bonnie remained standing alone, broken, humiliated, and exposed. She quickly collected her thoughts, decided to treat the couple in love with a lunchbox, but Minjun didn't let her at the table, decisively. Bullying in high school was usual, happened even among girls. After the disgrace, peers bullied Bonnie, cruelty. That day, the girl decided not to seek meetings with Minjun anymore, closed off, thinking over a strategy of protection and own dignity. Once Yerin was surrounded in the bathroom by girls to whom she made a remark, they beat her, took away her whistle, showing teenage cruelty. Bonnie was passing by, saw this, despite unfriendly relations, defended Minjun's friend, showing unexpected courage. The handsome blonde Chanrin was famous in the area, tired with rumors, was arrogant, haughty, divided peers into ranks, mercilessly. Now, when Chanrin was temporarily in Minjun's body, he called himself a slave of the second rank of His Highness and calmly fell asleep meekly at the desk. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, showdowns continued between Minjun and girls smoking in the wrong place. The noise was incredibly loud. At the loud screams, guys came, separated the girls, doused them with water from a hose, soaked to the threads they couldn't stand straight, trembled terribly. Yerin, soaked through, didn't move away from Bonnie, hugged her, and sincerely thanked her for protection from these school fools and their stupid tricks. Suddenly, Minjun came out of the stall, took a towel off his belt, deftly threw it at the surprised Bonnie, making everyone freeze and listen attentively. The guys who came to separate the girls began to guess that he was not only Chanrin's slave, as he stated earlier, but was hiding some kind of secret inside. Mingun called himself Bonnie's boyfriend, which surprised everyone present with his boldness and lie, including himself, internally embarrassed slightly. One of the lackeys, a first-rank slave, with a threatening look approached the weakling and promised to sort it out. Eyes sparkled, breathing quick and strongly. The handsome blonde didn't go himself to the showdowns, but sent Simkin, the same one whom the weakling had earlier beaten up in the bathroom, skillfully pulling him over to his side. Simkin, a real first-rank slave, understood that he needed to choose one master and secretly chose Minjun, but didn't inform Chanrin about this. Chanrin was unpleasantly surprised by the news. His heart squeezed, thoughts were confused, and the air seemed heavy and oppressive, like after rain at night. As expected, Simkin came to the shower, beat up the big guy who called himself a first-rank slave, clearly showing his support for Minjun firmly. Minjun called Bonnie his girlfriend, not by chance, planning to approach her for the sake of her abilities and studies and improve his knowledge unnoticed. So, it happened that Yeren was left without a boyfriend. Because of poor grades, she became useless for Minjun, and her heart missed and ached quietly in the evenings. Bonnie was very happy about the opportunity to be near Minjun, inviting him home under the pretext that it's easier to study at home together. Minjun didn't yet fully understand why Bonnie took a shower, and then asked him to go to the bathroom. Guesses tormented his mind gradually persistently. Bonnie's plan to drag Minjun into bed failed when her father unexpectedly came home from work, violating any hopes and calculations instantly. While Bonnie was reporting to her father about the past day, Minjun hid in the closet, not understanding how ordinary studying led him into such a dead-end full. Ordinary jokes between dad and daughter gained seriousness when the father jumped into the room, pulled out Minjun, and pointed a personal gun at him threateningly. From the first minutes of being in the house, Minjun couldn't shake the feeling that he had been here before. Interior items and rooms seemed painfully familiar always. Chanrin took a long time to come to himself in Minjun's body, gradually remembering the visit to Bonnie, the meeting with her father, and past oddities that left deep scars. He remembered that then, the dad, who received a contusion during service in Korea, challenged him to a duel, but then Chanrin looked like a bodybuilder. Now he's a scrawny weakling. Minjun tried to smooth over the conflict, bowing low, asking for mercy, but Bonnie's dad in rage tore his shirt, demanding an honest fight one-on-one decisively. Chanrin had just begun to train the body for sports, and seeing Bonnie's father in a rage was frightening. The daughter tried to neutralize the threat with force directly. The veteran lost consciousness from his daughter's neck grab, while remembering military actions, the child's birth, and the most important moments of his life painfully. Understanding came quickly. Defeating one's own daughter was impossible, so he had to give way to the younger generation, despite the bitterness of heart. A week remained until exams. Bonnie did everything so her beloved would cope, spending hours with him at school after lessons, training him persistently. A week remained until the third incident, which had to be handled or prevented. Everything depended on the actions and reaction of all participants in the situation. A guy named Guido turned out to be a key participant. He influenced the course of events, and his actions could break or save the development of the whole story. Chanrin, watching this chaos, realized that the lessons of the past and physical training would be decisive in the coming trials, and there was almost no time left for mistakes. Minjun and Chanrin communicated mentally, remembering moments of the past that needed to be fixed to return their bodies. Tension grew stronger and stronger and didn't let go. In school years, Guido appeared in class, immediately standing out and bullied Minjun, pulling down his pants in front of everyone, humiliating him publicly in front of all classmates. Later, Guido's blows became stronger. His bullying inspired other inadequates, increasing pressure and fear, which Minjun constantly felt inside himself. On the way home, Minjun cried secretly. Neither school nor home gave the opportunity to show weakness. The world seemed cruel and alien completely hopelessly. The parents opened a restaurant, and there Minjun found peace, real rest from the world's cruelty, although happiness was hidden and fragile inside the soul. Once the parents hired a new assistant, it turned out to be classmate Guido, which instantly turned the usual order upside down and completely destroyed Minjun's joy again. Chanrin listened to Minjun's memories. Inside, impatience grew to handle the situation and prevent the third incident to return home alive together. After the story, Chanrin in Minjun's body prepared. Having thought through a plan to stop the third incident, his heart beat faster from tension and adrenaline. Guido came to apply for a job. The parents accepted him because of a cute fake smile, not asking unnecessary questions and trusting the first impression completely. Chanrin watched Guido, understanding that now everything depended on Minjun's reaction and each next step could decide the outcome of the whole story finally. Guido noticed his victim in the restaurant and instead of shock, experienced strange satisfaction. A smile slid across his face like a shadow on the half-light of the hall. To Minjun's parents, he introduced himself as the son's friend and classmate. In the adult's eyes shone trust, full of calm and simplicity of soul. At first, Guido worked impeccably. Dishes came out tasty, customers left satisfied. Parents praised each step of their son with sincere joy. But alone with Minjun, the aching blows remained hidden. There were no bruises. Pain quietly ate into every cell of the guy and tormented his soul. Over time, customer complaints increased. Flies and hair in food became a habit. Parents blamed the son, and Gito continued to press without the slightest mercy. After a month, Minjun was forced to perform almost all of Gito's duties. He demanded a raise and looked at him with insolence and a smug look. When the enemy hugged Minjun in front of everyone, the guy was looking for a solution. Thoughts swirled, his heart pounded, and Gito's name sounded like a sentence and the ringing of prison. Once a dude in a pink balaclava and shorts burst into the cafe, his voice tore the space. All visitors scattered as if on a signal of alarm or instant panic. The moron approached the owner. The whisper was strange and threatening, eyes greedily drilled. Each step was a reminder of danger and possible trouble. At this moment, Gito deftly grabbed the bastard from behind, held him tight. His strength grew, and he cursed and threatened. But besides, panic did nothing. Gito was a guy not from the timid dozen. Even without force, dragged the moron in the pink hat to the exit, giving him a kick in the ass. Returning to the establishment, he felt like a hero. Minjun's parents looked with respect. The performance in the pink balaclava went successfully. The dialogue revealed that Chanrin screwed up, trying to solve the incident in his own way, because leaving Gito at work wasn't part of the task. He had to listen to the past to the end to understand what happened before. What now requires correction and a new approach. Minjun told that the parents, having opened a restaurant, were truly happy, every day investing heart and strength into the business. For the father, the restaurant became a challenge to himself, proof that at any age, you can start from scratch and achieve results. The parents worked day and night, rejoiced at every earned kopeck, seeing how their restaurant and customer respect grew. New worker Gito was released early, considering him well-mannered, and their own son was forced to work more than they could endure. Minjun endured beatings and humiliations from Gito, not daring to tell his parents, kept the pain inside, not disturbing family peace. To tell the father that his son was being beaten would mean killing the old man's dream and strength, who loved the restaurant very much and invested his whole life in it. Minjun didn't want to, and was afraid to become a problem for his happy father and mother, so he didn't tell them about his troubles. Once came the day of Minjun's parents' wedding anniversary, and the father told Gito about it, who, having planned something bad, sent the parents home, and he stayed with the son at the restaurant for unexpected actions. When Minjun went to the store for a gift for his parents, Gito, meanwhile, invited all his friends to the same restaurant, and they arranged a feast there with laughter and noise. Returning to the restaurant to prepare the holiday, the weakling saw there all his tormentors. They were having fun and laughing, behaving boorishly, and weren't going to leave for a minute. On the contrary, they made Minjun serve them, pour alcohol and all this at the expense of the establishment without the slightest mercy. Then Chamran poured him a full glass of vodka and made him drink it, after which they began to beat the owner's son without any mercy. A little later, the father came into the restaurant and saw all this disgrace. The elderly man was beside himself with rage and couldn't be silent. The father, for the first time in his life, gave his son a slap, since he left the restaurant to him trusting in the hope of obedience. Minjun's enemies at this moment sat meekly at the table, lowering their heads and taking on the appearance of harmless comrades whom the loser son invited and himself got them drunk for his own benefit. Ultimately, the father managed to see off his son's false friends. But since then, relations between son and father were no longer as warm as before and became more tense. Being under the influence of alcohol, Minjun jumped out after the enemies, trying to somehow smooth over the situation, which could turn against him unexpectedly. He only remembers falling on the road, then sleep, and didn't see anything else, didn't understand where he ended up, and what was really happening to him. Waking up, Minjun realized that he was at the station together with enemies. Everyone had handcuffs on their hands, and the air was heavy and oppressive strongly. Need blood? At the police, Chanrin answered that they drank alcohol at Minjun's restaurant, which belonged to his father, and this was confirmed officially. Gito confirmed the same information during interrogation, which finally shocked the parents because they never sold alcohol to minors secretly. To save the situation, Minjun's father took the blame on himself, confessed to what he didn't do, and tried to protect his son from the consequences really. After the incident, Minjun closed in on himself for a long time. The restaurant's work stopped, and the father for the first time realized how cruelly he was treated at school, obviously. The parents thought to open the restaurant again, but the spoiled reputation scared away visitors, and the business became unprofitable, gradually coming to complete ruin. Minjun's father got a job at a construction site where he received a severe injury, and this finally deprived him of the opportunity to work and support the family completely. Minjun remained one-on-one with internal fears, loss of family, and destroyed hopes, gradually closing in his own world of pain strongly. Having listened to Minjun's story, Chanrin got upset, which wasn't characteristic of him, and quietly apologized to the body's owner, feeling the weight of the moment and internal confusion. Then, having perked up, he promised to fix the main incident in Minjun's life, which long ago left a mark and spoiled his mood every week. Returning to the day of the incident, not yet happened, he watched himself and couldn't remember why he was so satisfied, sitting in the restaurant with his thoughts. Taking the situation into his own hands, Chanrin, instead of a ban, offered the guys free drinks, surprising everyone with his strange, friendly approach and unexpected boldness. Such behavior of the weaklings sincerely shocked the bullies. They wondered why, voluntarily, give away what he should have protected and hidden from prying eyes. Despite the enemy's bewilderment, Minjun himself poured for Chanrin so the blonde would get drunk faster, losing caution and becoming less adequate and too uninhibited. Chanrin, in Minjun's body, knew himself better than anyone, understood that after 4 shots he would definitely go home, observing a hidden strategy and internal plan. That's exactly what needed to be done so that the incident that changed Minjun's life wouldn't happen, preserving friendship and reputation for long years. This time, as before, everything went a little differently. Minjun poured vodka, Chanrin drank, but refused to leave after the 4th shot persistently and with a stubborn look. He couldn't leave friends who gathered on the occasion of a promotion and, on the contrary, began to hug Minjun, violating the usual order of yard laws and old rules. Minjun, not sparing alcohol, poured for Chanrin. He couldn't get drunk from 1 bottle, but excitement was already heating the atmosphere among them and friends. Alcohol began to act. Chanrin did push-ups from the floor, demonstrating strength which he couldn't boast of sober. Eyes shone with excitement and fire. Bonnie watched them, not daring to choose who was cuter to her, brunette Minjun or blonde Chanrin. Her heart rushed between 2 extremes and fear. She thought that both were on top now, and this feeling fueled the internal struggle. Her gaze jumped from one to the other, finding no peace and rest. When someone shouted to bend fingers for lovers, Minjun and Chanrin reacted, which surprised everyone. Even the most indifferent, smiles flashed everywhere and brightly. Hour after hour, drunk get-togethers warmed up the company. Even Chanrin, who seemed sober, was already giving himself to fun, losing control over himself and time and thoughts. The doors swung open with a crash. Bonnie's father burst inside, seized with anger. The scene before his eyes infuriated him. Determination to act was instant and harsh. He attacked indiscriminately. Fists flew. Not counting the participants' age and strength, past experience only spurred rage. Chaos grew with every second and minute. Some tried to repel the retired colonel's blows, but his experience and strength gave advantage. Walls trembled. Confusion grew among party guests and friends. Daughter Bonnie deftly grabbed him from behind, and at this moment tension reached its limit. Events unfolded unpredictably, leaving everyone in shock and horror. Chanrin tried to get up to beat up his girlfriend's dad, but his legs gave way, and he collapsed, feeling his own weakness and internal confusion. In the weakling's body, Chanrin decided to take the situation into his own hands, to understand who's boss here and how to get out of this crazy mess and restore order. Minjun thought from which side to approach the old man, and he was honing blows on Guido as if training before a fight and checking the strength of each. The retired colonel got tired of swinging at the youth, left without saying goodbye, taking his daughter Bonnie with him, leaving chaos behind and irritation in his soul. When it seemed the situation was leveling out, Chanrin woke up and began to ask what happened here while he was out, trying to understand all the details of the conflict. Guido tried to explain in his style, and Minjun twisted the story so as to present himself in a more favorable light and hide weak sides. Time dragged on, the situation dragged on, and the moment came when Minjun's father appeared, repeating old patterns of conflict and adding tension again. Minjun couldn't think of anything better than to escape from the restaurant, meeting those morons because of whom the company last time suffered and reputation was spoiled. So that the guys wouldn't run into Chanrin, Minjun decided to meet with them first and find out the reasons for the recent fight and prevent new problems. It turned out that the company attacked Chanrin's people because of exceeding authority. On the street, there are their own laws and their own rules, and no one likes outsiders. Chanrin in Minjun's body stood up for himself, listing how much benefit he brought to the guys, but spoke on behalf of Minjun, causing only tenderness and a quiet smile. The guys looked at him skeptically because they themselves were victims of Chanrin and considered Minjun only an image of threat, laughed to themselves, hiding anger and discontent. A few minutes later, the blonde Chanrin appeared, and word by word, tension grew. A mess was shaping up. Minjun urgently needed to come up with a clever plan. He jumped out from behind Chanrin's back in a pink balaclava, started defending the blonde asshole, hoping to distract opponents and show the strength of real support. But both companies perceived his appearance with disdain. No one believed that the pink figure was capable of really influencing the outcome of the future fight. The fight flared up instantly, mercilessly, bloodily, cruelly, resembling wrestling, where blows were delivered to the head, stomach, and kidneys with forbidden dangerous techniques. The guys, whom Chanrin once made the terror of the streets, beat him, expressing old grievances and claims, as if confident in their final complete victory over the boss. The The rebellion almost reached its goal, but Chanrin's physical training and rage stopped the wave of attacks, allowing him to hold out and keep defense confidently, despite the blows. Here's an important turn. The blonde's victory became possible thanks to the help of Mr. X, a mysterious person in a pink balaclava, who made a decisive big contribution. Everything calmed down. Only after both sides realized the price of their actions, Chanrin remained standing, and Minjun inside understood that this was only the beginning of their new difficult trials. Among the attackers and already subdued, the most peppy was Guido. The guy in the pink hat. Minjun had no right to give the asshole to the blonde now. He himself finished off the opponent, standing shoulder to shoulder with defeated enemies. Both heroes after the body swap for the first time felt normal together nearby. A little later, Chanrin wanted to fight with Mr. X. He agreed, but the person in the pink balaclava refused on the spot and called Chanrin further quickly. But what the hell? Again, everything went wrong. The police arrived right at the fight, and no one knew who called the cops. The situation heated up strongly. One policeman, clearly not in the know about manga, didn't know the rules and removed the balaclava from Mr. X. The spectacle brought the blonde to the limit, damn awfully. From what he saw, the blonde's roof apparently went. He was looking for a way out and found it. With one blow to the jaw, he knocked himself out suddenly. Without consciousness, he was loaded into a police car. The rest were also tied up, preparing to be sent to the station. The atmosphere gradually heated up. The crowd froze when Yaren's commanding voice was heard. The guys immediately understood who set the police on them. Everything became clear, finally. The tension didn't subside. The heroes exchanged glances, understood that this was only the beginning, and new trials and unexpected surprises awaited them ahead. Night covered the city, streets burned with lights, and the heroes, albeit in different form, were already building a plan how to get out of this wild situation quickly. For the first time, Minjun needed to seem like a fool and weakling to everyone, and not a hero in a pink balaclava, so he asked Yeren to honestly say that she called the police herself. But Yeren remembered all the grievances and troubles that Minjun caused her before, so she gave the command to the police to arrest the weak one too, not sparing a drop of people. As a result, as last time, the whole company ended up at the station. Everyone's faces were serious and stern, but inside the usual chaotic teenage energy boiled. In one office sat the blonde, gave testimony that they drank alcohol at Minjun's parents' restaurant, but brought the drinks secretly with them, so he tried to hide the misconduct. Coming out of the office, Chanrin began to ask his homies if they were offended at him for something again, checking if friendship was preserved, or the crack already gaped deeply. No one complained about the blonde. On the contrary, they joked about him openly, laughed and joked together, like everything suits them completely, and tension gradually fell from their shoulders. But Chanrin was haunted by an obsessive thought. He couldn't put together the puzzle in his own head. Why a person in a balaclava always appears right after Minjun's disappearance? Minjun quietly rejoiced, hearing the conversations of these idiots around, gradually understanding that it was finally reaching them. He's not a scrawny guy, but a hero, albeit in a pink mask. The handsome blonde sat apart, all in long thoughts, not understanding why the weakling, over whom he often bullied, so often helped him and defended without words. And why, in the last fight, this scrawny guy unexpectedly reproached him that he lives wrong, leaving in the blonde's heart a strange feeling of guilt and deep confusion. Despite the boss blonde's testimony, Guido stated that they drank alcohol at Minju's restaurant, ignoring all warnings. According to him, the policeman called Minjun's parents and invited them to the station, checking who was guilty and how serious the situation was. The parents arrived quickly and explained that they don't sell alcohol to minors and that the kids took it themselves without asking, violating rules. The store had to be closed, as in the first incident, but Minjun didn't give up, believing that a chance to fix the situation still existed and everything was possible. Minjun understood who incited the guys to arrange troubles for him and his family. Guido was the center of all conflicts and manipulations. Coming to their hangout place, the weakling was no longer a weakling. He turned into Mr. X, delivering blows to everyone around, not distinguishing faces. The person in the pink balaclava put Guido on his knees and forced him to spread only good reviews about Minjun's restaurant and his parents. Despite this, the establishment's rating continued to fall rapidly, collapsing along with reputation and hope for normal business operation. Most painful was watching how the family's usual routine was destroyed, usual rules were violated, and trust gradually disappeared. As a result, the incident that destroyed Minjun's life turned out to be inexhausted, and there were no more chances to fix what happened and bring everything back. Despite the severity and hopelessness of the situation, there during the dialogue of two characters suddenly appeared light at the end of the tunnel, as if hope came alive. Meanwhile, in Minjun's life, everything went as before. He locked himself in his room and quietly cried that because of him, the restaurant went bankrupt. Suddenly, the father knocked on the door with an unexpected smile. Minjun opened and expected to see dad upset, as last time. But the father, on the contrary, was joyful and immediately began to kiss his weak-willed son, hugging tightly. It's worth saying that Minjun is no longer that weakling he was not so long ago. His peers no longer mock him, they sincerely envy him. The thought of such a transition from bankrupt to successful businessman came to Minjun suddenly when he sat alone in the bathroom, thoughtfully examining the walls. From brain strain, Chanrin will finally remember, though belatedly, that fateful day for his former cool blonde self. It turns out, he really had bitcoins in his account. This same memory of that day came to Minjun, and the stutterer with relish replayed those events in his head, deciding to repeat them again, despite the fact that there seemed to be no chances left. Reaching despair, he put on a pink balaclava and decisively went to Chanrin's house. There, applying all his martial arts mastery, he will skillfully tie the bodybuilder to the bed, and himself no longer hiding his identity, will carefully enter the right password on the laptop and take from himself his own bitcoins. Nonsense, of course, but that's exactly how it was. Every criminal leaves at least 3 clues at the crime scene. Since Minjun is not a criminal, because he took his own, he left only 1 clue, a black hair from Minjun's head that accidentally fell. As a result, Guido answered for everything that happened, because the blonde thought that his bitcoins were stolen by this moron with a smirk and sadness, because he has black hair of the same length that he found. Despite close relations in the family, Minjun's parents didn't know the truth about the appearance of money with them. He lied that he won a super big lottery. Unlike the first scenario, after fixing this incident, everything worked out well for Yeren. She graduated from the police academy and was honorably awarded. Guido's life also changed. Now he became a toy in the blonde's hands. Because of debt, he had to stand in the middle of the classroom without pants and endure constant mockery. There, inside the dialogue, remembering all his former life, Chanjie was sincerely amazed at how he could be such a thug. But still, he was glad that he managed to change several important incidents. Recently, Chanrin became more loyal to his guys, didn't make them perform some humiliating things, and sometimes even gave them money. Before fixing the incident, everything in Bonnie's life also improved. Even a boyfriend appeared. She wanted to introduce everyone to him and joyfully tell everyone. Against the background of jealousy between Chanrin and Bonnie's boyfriend, a fight occurred, as a result of which Chanrin was knocked out with a broken face. So now, it's time to fix everything. Before changing history, Minjun told Chanrin everything, and even that he must defeat Bonnie's new strong boyfriend. Before going into the ring, Chanjin and Minjun trained days and nights on end. And so the fight began. The hall is full of noisy, excited fans. Both opponents are equally strong and equally interested in their victory, because the prize in victory was not only victory, but also Cutie Bonnie. Round after round passed, and Chanrin was further from victory. And if it goes on like this, then the blonde's loss is inevitable. Something's not right here, Minjun thought. And at the moment when during the fight, Bonnie walked through the hall with her new boyfriend, Minjun understood that Chanrin is now fighting the wrong guy, and therefore depriving himself of victory. The 4th incident will begin on Bonnie's birthday, after she confesses her love to Minjun. But to fix it, he needs to refuse friends. Having quarreled with all new friends, Minjun in Chanrin's body met with Bonnie. He didn't buy her a gift, didn't go to her birthday, and didn't listen to her confession. On the day of the incident, one of the guys gave the stutterer keys to his bike for safekeeping. But Chanrin came, smashed this bike to smithereens. The blame was shifted to Minjun. Of course his parents paid for this motorcycle, having sold their restaurant. As a result, Minjun's father injured his back at a new job. From what was happening, Minjun's mind clouded. He decided to end his life by suicide on the roof of Chanrin's house. The guy even wrote a suicide note. But Chanrin saw this weakling on the roof, climbed out to him, and beat him up well, reproached him for the fact that this stutterer doesn't even know how to leave life humanly. The next day, Chanrin came to school with a microphone, beat up Minjun, and made him repent in front of the whole class for what he didn't do. That day, Minjun started stuttering. After this incident, Minjun's father came to school because Minjun told his parents about his stuttering and what was happening to him. Everything was heading towards Minjun being prepared for transfer to a new school. More precisely, he himself asked for it, because he no longer wanted to stay here. Listening to Minjun's story inside the dialogue, Chanrin didn't want to participate in this matter further. He was ashamed and scared, but without his participation, it was impossible to return their bodies back. The 4th incident started with this motorcycle, and to prevent it, Chanrin, the blonde, and his morons needed to not allow Minjun's transfer to another school at any cost. Everything from the beginning. When the motorcycle owner entrusted Minjun not to give keys to anyone, the weakling, knowing the further course of events, again gave them to handsome Chanrin without thinking. Again, the vehicle owner beat him up, who was going to go to his parents for compensation and arrange a serious conversation. In the past, at this moment, Yeren was supposed to run in here with a whistle in her teeth and shower everyone with fines. But in this version of the incident, there was no girl. And that was even good. The motorcycle owner took Minjun by the scruff and went to his house for money. At home, of course, his bedridden father with an injured back met them. That's how it was in the past, in reality. But now, in this reality, Minjun has neither friends, nor loved ones, nor support, and the parents are far away, on vacation, as if outside his life. Here and now, Minjun must at all costs stop this boor Sangun, and stop him you can only if he hits the stutterer in front of Bonnie's eyes, violating the usual course of events. Sangun was angry at everyone and everything because of a quarrel with Bonnie, so the weakling didn't have to do anything except silently lie on the floor unconscious and wait for the sweet girl to arrive. Bonnie came on time. She was enraged and clearly boiling, tore the chair out of the nasty Sangun's hands, loudly told him everything in front of everyone, calling him names and humiliating him without mercy. But her signature theme was a loud statement that she loves Minjun, that now she's his girlfriend and they've been together for a long time already. The classmates' shock was real shock, although these were people with strong psyches and a habit of strange scenes. Sangun didn't stand for such disgrace and, unable to restrain himself, backhanded Bonnie right in front of everyone. At this moment, the morality police, Yeren, arrived in the classroom and sharply slapped Sangun in response without thinking. Sangun, without thinking, grabs any chair that comes to hand to smash everything around here and vent his anger, but accidentally hits Seolgi with it, who was not at all involved in the conflict and was just standing nearby. From this moment, Minjun again got friends and defenders, and he only had to want to live on and not give up. A fight started 3-on-3. On one side, Gido, Sangun, and the motorcycle owner. On the other, Minjun, Seolgi, Bonnie, and Yeren. In this battle, not for life but for death, there was no longer Minjun the stutterer. He became Mr. X, only today without a balaclava, and it shocked everyone. Sorry. And Seolgi without glasses, with a lock on the bridge of his nose, looked unrecognizable. During the time he didn't attend school, he strongly trained his body, became different. He and Minjun had common enemies, and he easily scattered them around the classroom in different directions, as if playfully. And when Seolgi laid Sangun on his shoulder blades, Chanrin entered the classroom and unexpectedly wished to fight with the fat guy. At this moment, knowing what would happen next, Minjun put on a pink balaclava in the bathroom and hurried to the classroom. He urgently needed to separate Seolgi and Chanrin, because Seolgi would lose. Minjun, in the guise of Mr. X, entered the classroom. Chanrin, seeing such a legendary street fighter before him, was a little taken aback and tensed up. But his surprise knew no bounds when Minjun in front of everyone removed the pink balaclava from himself, as if throwing a challenge to everyone in the classroom. Minjun delivered blow after blow to Chanrin, not sparing either himself or him, as if wanting to prove something greater than just strength. At the same time, the blonde also didn't give up and fought back, while in their heads a dialogue was going on between them. And there Minjun told Chanrin that he would kill him today if the incident wasn't changed. Chanrin began to shout out loud what needed to be done, not to die, and at this moment Minjun stepped back and said, "You just need to apologize to me for all these years of bullying." But Chanrin hadn't grown to that yet. He didn't apologize, being among his homies, and on the contrary, with all his might kicked Minjun in the head, not thinking about consequences.